You are fired. Consider it my gift to you. The message hit me like a slap to the face. Not a phone call. Not even a proper email. Just a blunt, venom-laced text from Lex Monroe, the arrogant son of my boss, sent while I stood in my wedding gown, bouquet still warm in my hand. I had just said I do. My heart was supposed to be light. Instead, I was standing in the church hallway, phone in one hand, stunned silence ringing in my ears while my guests laughed inside. My dream job, 8 years of blood, sweat, and sacrifice, was wiped out in a single line of text. Lex couldn't even wait until Monday. He chose my wedding day to destroy me. I showed the message to Michael, my new husband. His reaction wasn't what I expected. No panic, no anger, just a quiet smile that said he knew something I didn't. Breathe, he whispered, taking my shaking hands in his. Check your messages later. Today belongs to us. So I did what every part of my body resisted. I handed my phone to my maid of honor, Mandy, and I walked through the church doors into a shower of rose petals and celebration. 3 hours later, as Michael and I swayed through our first dance, Mandy stormed in. Rachel, your phone's been going crazy. 108 missed calls. Calls from the office, co-workers. Giles Monroe, Lex's father and owner of the company, called me 17 times. That's when I realized this wasn't just a firing. This was war. Before we dive deeper, do me one quick favor. Hit like and subscribe. It helps more than you know. So many people miss the next story just because they didn't tap that button. And trust me, you don't want to miss how this ends. Now, let's rewind to where everything truly began. I wasn't always someone people feared in the architecture world. I started out quietly, an intern who stayed late, asked the right questions, and didn't care for the spotlight. But after 8 years at Steelshore Urban Concepts, I had become its nerve center. The one who saw everything, caught mistakes before they were disasters, balanced design with law, passion with logic. I was Rachel Morgan, lead project manager, compliance guru, systems architect, and I loved what I did. Growing up in a working-class family in Milwaukee, I had watched my father lose job after job to companies that value profits over people. My mother cleaned offices at night to make ends meet. They sacrificed everything so I could attend Northwestern's architecture program. When I graduated summa cum laude and landed the internship at Steelshore, I swore I'd never let anyone push me around the way my parents had been pushed. For 7 years, that promise held true. I climbed the ranks not through politics or charm, but through competence. I was the person who caught structural flaws that could kill people. I was the one who navigated Chicago's labyrinthine building codes. When city inspectors showed up unannounced, they asked for me by name because they knew I'd have every document, every calculation, every safety protocol filed perfectly. That is, until Lex Monroe arrived. Lex was the kind of man who measured value by attention. Fresh from a 2-year MBA program overseas, he returned to the firm his father built and was gifted the title Vice President of Operations. At 28, he had never designed a building, never read a safety code, never spent a sleepless night wondering if a beam could handle the load. But he had an MBA from Wharton and a trust fund that made him fearless. The title didn't bother me. What did? His attitude. Lex believed safety codes were suggestions, that deadlines were sacred, that gut instinct beat structural analysis. Within his first month, he'd already started cutting corners, and not small ones. He eliminated redundant safety checks on the Morrison Plaza renovation. He approved substandard materials for the Harbor District mixed-use complex because they were 30% cheaper. He pushed through design changes without consulting the engineering team. I watched projects I'd nurtured from conception get bastardized by his shortcuts. But I stayed quiet, documenting everything, hoping Gerald would notice and rein in his son. 3 weeks before my wedding, Lex signed off on removing crucial inspection phases from the Wilkerson Tower project, a 40-story residential high-rise that would house over 800 families. I'm talking wind resistance, seismic pressure checks, and material fatigue tests. All gone. The tower was scheduled to break ground in 6 months, and Lex wanted to accelerate the timeline by eliminating what he called redundant safety theater. I raised hell. "You're compromising the structure," I told him in front of the leadership team during our weekly review meeting. The conference room fell silent. Gerald Monroe sat at the head of the table, his weathered face unreadable. The other department heads, men I'd worked with for years, suddenly found their laptops fascinating. Lex didn't look up from his tablet. "And you're compromising our profits, Rachel. The client wants occupancy by Q3 next year. These inspections will push us to Q1 the year after. That's millions in delayed revenue. Those inspections exist because buildings fall down without them. People die. People also need places to live, and investors need returns. Your job is to make projects happen, not create obstacles." The room stayed silent. Gerald cleared his throat but said nothing. That's when I knew I was fighting alone. I escalated it to the compliance board anyway. I filed a formal objection, citing specific building codes and past incidents where similar shortcuts had led to structural failures. I attached engineering reports, historical data, and photographs from the Champlain Towers collapse in Florida, a tragedy that could have been prevented with proper inspections. The next day, my report vanished from the internal system. My login was restricted to basic functions. When I tried to access the Wilkerson Tower files, I got an error message, insufficient clearance level. Lex had removed me from the project, but he made a mistake. He thought removing my access would silence me. Instead, it confirmed what I'd already suspected. He was hiding something bigger than corner cutting. He was covering up systematic fraud. I should have seen it then, but I told myself to focus on my wedding. Michael and I had been planning this day for 2 years. We'd chosen the venue, a small stone church where his grandparents had married. We'd written our own vows. We'd invited 150 people who mattered to us. I wouldn't let Lex Monroe ruin it. But I wasn't naive. I backed up my work. Every email, every revision note, every safety protocol I'd written over 8 years. I saved copies on encrypted drives, hid files in password-protected folders, created a separate offline archive stored in a safety deposit box. I documented every conversation I'd had with Lex, every meeting where he'd overruled safety concerns, every project where corners had been cut. I had no proof Lex would come for me, but I had instinct, and 8 years of watching powerful men destroy anyone who challenged them. And I was right. On the morning of my wedding, I woke up at dawn in the bridal suite at the Palmer House Hotel. Mandy was already awake, steaming my dress and arranging flowers. The morning light filtered through the curtains, casting everything in gold. For a moment, I felt purely happy. In 6 hours, I'd marry the man I loved. My parents would watch their daughter achieve something they'd never imagined possible. Everything I'd worked for was coming together. I was nervous, but happy. Michael was everything Lex wasn't. Steady, sharp, kind. He was a freelance graphic designer who understood deadlines and client demands, but never let them compromise his integrity. He listened when I vented about work. He asked smart questions. He made me laugh when the stress became too much. My partner in every sense. Just as I waited for the processional to begin, my phone vibrated. I almost didn't check it. Mandy had told me to put it away. But something made me look. Effective immediately, your employment with Steel Shore Urban Concepts is terminated. We wish you the best. Lex Monroe. The world stopped. The church sounds, organ music, murmuring guests, children laughing, became white noise. I read the message 3 times, hoping the words would change. They didn't. Lex had fired me. Not his father. Not HR. Not even a phone call. A text message. On my wedding day, while I stood in my grandmother's pearl earrings and the dress I'd saved for 2 years to buy. Michael found me in the hallway, staring at my phone like it had grown fangs. He took one look at my face and knew. What happened? I showed him the message. His jaw tightened, but he didn't explode. He didn't call Lex names or demand we skip the ceremony. Instead, he took my shaking hands in his steady ones and said the words that saved me. Breathe. Check your messages later. Today belongs to us. Michael didn't let me spiral. He held me together. He told me to wait, to breathe. He was calm in a way that made me trust him even when my world was collapsing. So we got married. I walked down that aisle with tears in my eyes, some from joy, some from rage, all from love. We exchanged rings. We kissed as husband and wife. We danced to At Last by Etta James while our families cheered. And then the storm hit. 3 days into our honeymoon in South Africa, my phone blew up. We were staying at a safari lodge outside Cape Town, surrounded by mountains and vineyards, trying to forget about Chicago and Steel Shore and everything else. Michael had planned it perfectly, remote enough to disconnect, beautiful enough to heal. But you can't outrun a scandal. Co-workers, friends, a senior analyst I hadn't spoken to in months, and 17 missed calls from Gerald Monroe himself. Each voicemail was more frantic than the last. Rachel, call me back immediately. Rachel, there's been a misunderstanding. Rachel, we need to talk. Now. On the 4th day, I answered. Rachel, Gerald said, his voice tight with panic, I just learned about the termination. That was unauthorized. Lex bypassed protocol. And now we have a disaster. I sat on the deck of our lodge, watching zebras graze in the distance. Michael brought me coffee and sat beside me, close enough to hear everything. What kind of disaster, Gerald? The city revoked our permits. The Wilkerson Tower project is frozen. Missing documents, altered reports. The compliance board is demanding an emergency audit. Investors are furious. Auditors are crawling through everything. And you're the only one who knows how the compliance system was built. Please, we need you. I sipped my coffee, looked out at the African sunset painting the sky in impossible colors. I'm on my honeymoon. I'll call you when I get back. Rachel, you don't understand. The firm is bleeding. We could lose everything. Then maybe you should have thought about that before your son fired me via text message on my wedding day. I hung up. Michael squeezed my hand. Feel good. It felt incredible. But I knew this was just the beginning. Gerald Monroe didn't panic easily. He'd built Steel Shore from nothing into one of Chicago's premier architecture firms. If he was scared, the situation was worse than he'd let on. Over the next 3 days, I pieced together what had happened from frantic emails and news reports. After firing me, Lex had tried to push through the Wilkerson Tower permits using modified documents. But the city's new digital compliance system, a system I'd helped design, flagged the alterations immediately. When inspectors demanded to see the original safety reports, they discovered that dozens of documents had been deleted or altered. The scandal spread fast. Whistleblowers came forward, junior engineers who'd been pressured to sign off on inadequate inspections, project managers who'd been told to hide cost overruns, subcontractors who'd been stiffed on payments. The Chicago Tribune ran a front-page expose titled Architecture Firm's Foundation Built on Lies. By the time we returned to Chicago, the scandal was everywhere. Top architecture firm faces collapse after whistleblower expose. Steel Shore rocked by internal fraud allegations. Urban developers license under investigation. Monroe family empire crumbles amid safety scandal. They had no idea who the original whistleblower was, but it was me. I hadn't just saved the data, I'd built a firewall. The compliance framework I'd designed over 8 years required lead verification for any changes to safety protocols. I had created algorithms that flagged unusual access patterns, documented who made changes and when, and automatically backed up original files to secure servers. It was designed to prevent exactly what Lex had tried to do. But Lex didn't understand the system. He just wanted to look good to investors and his father. He thought he could delete a few files, modify some reports, and push through permits faster. He had no idea that every change left digital fingerprints, or that the system I'd built was specifically designed to catch people like him. Now, everything was falling apart, and the evidence trail led directly back to him. I didn't answer Gerald's next 17 calls. Instead, I called someone else. Yora. I said, "You still doing independent consultation?" Yora Hassan had been my closest colleague at Steel Shore before she left 2 years earlier to start her own structural engineering firm. She was brilliant, ethical, and tired of watching good projects get ruined by bad management. Yeah, why? I'm building something. A firm. Smaller. Smarter. with people who care about integrity over profits. You in? She was quiet for a long moment. What happened at Steel Shore? I told her everything. The corner cutting, the firing, the scandal. When I finished, she was quiet again. When do we start? That was Tuesday. By Friday, we had 5 people committed to the new venture. Yora, me, David Chen, a zoning lawyer who'd left Steel Shore 6 months earlier, Maria Santos, a materials auditor who'd been blacklisted for refusing to approve substandard steel, and Tom Williams, a project manager who'd quit rather than lie to clients about delays. We called it Clear Line Structures. The name said everything: clear processes, clear communication, clear ethics. Nothing hidden, nothing compromised. While Steel Shore crumbled under federal investigation, we quietly laid our foundation. The first week back from South Africa, I didn't rest. Michael's studio apartment became our temporary headquarters. I filled whiteboards with organizational charts and client acquisition strategies. Mandy helped design our logo and website. Yura assembled a list of contractors who'd been burned by Steel Shore's payment delays and false promises. Every name led to another. The rot ran deeper than I'd imagined. I discovered subcontractors unpaid for months, their invoices buried in Steel Shore's accounting system. Clients misled about project timelines and costs. Safety audits forged with fake inspector signatures. Environmental impact studies that had been copy-pasted from other projects in different cities. Lex hadn't just mismanaged one project. He'd made fraud a business model. But it wasn't just Lex. Giles had known. Maybe not every detail, but he'd known enough. He'd chosen profits over safety, his son's ambition over his employees' integrity. Now that the scandal was public, he was desperate to pin everything on Lex and save the family business. I wasn't interested in helping him. So we built Clearline as the opposite of everything Steel Shore had become. Transparency first, safety obsessed, client focused. Our motto was nothing hidden, nothing lost. Our contracts included mandatory safety reviews at every phase. Our project managers were required to copy clients on all major decisions. We charged premium rates because we delivered premium work, and people were desperate for it. The Steel Shore scandal had shaken confidence in the entire Chicago architecture community. Developers who'd worked with the firm for decades were scrambling to find new partners. City inspectors were scrutinizing every permit application. Insurance companies were demanding additional oversight on all major projects. Our first client was Harrison Development, the company behind Wilkerson Tower. After the permit revocation, they needed a new architecture firm immediately. The project was too far along to cancel, but they couldn't afford another scandal. Marcus Harrison called me personally. "Rachel, I've heard what happened. I want a firm that actually gives a damn about doing things right. Can you build it?" "Yes," I said. "And we already have." We signed the contract that afternoon. Wilkerson Tower would be Clearline's first major project, and we'd do it right from the ground up. Full safety inspections, premium materials, transparent reporting at every phase. The timeline would be longer and the budget higher, but the building would be safe. By week 3, we had a professional website, business licenses, insurance policies, and 3 signed contracts with a combined $2.8 million. We moved out of Michael's apartment and into a real office in River North, nothing fancy, but clean and professional with room to grow. That's when Lex showed up at my door. I was working late on a Thursday, reviewing structural plans for our second project, when the building's security desk called up. "Ms. Morgan, there's a Lex Monroe here to see you. Says it's urgent." I considered having security remove him, but curiosity won. I wanted to hear what he had to say now that his world was collapsing. He looked different. Thinner. His usually perfect hair was disheveled, and his expensive suit couldn't hide the exhaustion in his eyes. But his arrogance remained intact. "Rachel, we need to talk." "No, we don't. Don't be childish. You don't understand what you've started. My father built this company from nothing. Hundreds of people will lose their jobs because of your tantrum." I leaned back in my chair. "Hundreds of people are going to lose their jobs because you committed fraud." I documented everything, Lex. Every shortcut, every forged document, every safety protocol you ignored. The FBI has it all now. His face went pale. You're the whistleblower. I'm the person who refused to let you kill people to pad your profit margins. He tried a different approach, the charm offensive that probably worked on investors and naive clients. Look, I made mistakes. I pushed too hard, moved too fast. But we can fix this. Come back to Steelshaw. Name your price. Your own department, complete autonomy, equity stake in the company. Whatever you want. I want you to leave my office. Rachel, be reasonable. This industry runs on relationships. You burn bridges with the Monroe family. You'll never work in Chicago again. No one will hire the woman who destroyed Steelshaw. I stood up. Lex, I don't work for anyone anymore. I work for myself. And my first piece of advice to my clients is going to be, never hire anyone named Monroe. That's when the mask finally slipped. The charm vanished, replaced by pure rage. You think you won? You think you're some kind of hero? This industry will eat you alive. I'll make sure of it. Get out. Now. He left, but not quietly. That same night, our website was hit with a denial of service attack. Our business email was flooded with spam. Someone created fake Yelp and Google reviews claiming we'd stolen proprietary information from Steelshaw. Anonymous messages arrived threatening legal action for tortious interference and trade secret theft. But I'd expected this. Powerful men don't accept defeat gracefully. So we fought back, legally and professionally. Our legal counsel, a brilliant woman named Diane Torres who specialized in white-collar crime, filed for injunctive relief against Steelshaw's retaliation tactics. She also helped us document every threat, every fake review, every suspicious attack on our systems. Meanwhile, Yara used her connections in the engineering community to spread the word about Clearline's ethical standards and commitment to safety. The response was overwhelming. Engineers who'd left other firms over ethical concerns reached out about job opportunities. Contractors shared horror stories about working with companies like Steelshaw. City inspectors privately applauded our transparency-first approach. Most importantly, clients started calling. Not just small developers looking for basic services, but major players who wanted to work with a firm they could trust. The mayor's office reached out about a municipal project. A tech company relocating to Chicago wanted us to design their new headquarters. A affordable housing nonprofit offered us a contract worth $5 million over 3 years. Within 6 weeks of opening, Clearline had a pipeline worth $15 million. By week 8, Gerald Monroe stepped down as CEO of Steelshaw, citing health concerns and desire to spend time with family. Lex Monroe was suspended pending the federal investigation. 3 other executives resigned rather than testify before the grand jury. The Chicago Tribune ran a follow-up story, From Ashes of Scandal, New Flame Rises. They interviewed me, Yora, and several of our clients. The article described Clearline as the anti-Steelshaw, a company built on the principles the older firm had abandoned. That weekend, I stood on stage at the Chicago Development Conference and pitched Clearline's model to a room of skeptical financiers and developers. I showed them numbers, how much money safety failures cost the industry each year, how much time proper planning saved in the long run, how much trust was worth in an industry built on relationships. I closed 5 major deals in 48 hours. Mandy hugged me backstage. Michael lifted me off my feet and spun me around like we were at our wedding all over again. I had gone from fired to founder in 3 months. From erased to remembered. From victim to victor. Today, Clearline Structures employs 37 people across Chicago, Milwaukee, and Detroit. We've completed over 60 projects without a single safety violation or client complaint. Our revenue last year exceeded $25 million, and we're on track to double that this year. Steelshaw Urban Concepts filed for bankruptcy 6 months after I was fired. Gerald Monroe's retirement became permanent when the IRS began investigating the firm's tax records. Lex Monroe was indicted on 17 counts of fraud, bribery, and reckless endangerment. His trial is scheduled for next spring. The Wilkerson Tower, our first major project, is now home to 847 families. It passed every inspection with perfect scores. The city uses it as a model for how development should be done. But the real victory isn't professional. It's personal. Last month, Michael and I bought a house in Lincoln Park, a beautiful Victorian we're renovating ourselves. We're planning to start a family next year. When I tell our children about their parents' love story, it won't be a fairy tale about a perfect wedding day. It will be a story about what happens when people try to break you, and you choose to build something better instead. Lex Monroe thought he was giving me a gift when he fired me on my wedding day. He was right. He gave me the freedom to become everything he never could. Honest, successful, and truly powerful. The best revenge isn't getting even. It's getting ahead. And I'm just getting started.